YCS Vancouver is in just a few months, and I'm going to try to get a top with Dark Magician. Over the course of these next few months, join me on this progression and my journey to make Dark Magician as competitive as possible. Deep dive with me into my thoughts, theories, and let's craft the most optimal list for the 2023 format, ultimately leading me to the ultimate prize of a YCS top with my favorite deck. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day. This is a very special video because today we'll be looking at how my Dark Magician deck combats the current meta and the format. In this video, we'll be looking at a few different matches and going into my thought process as I play out various scenarios, as well as siding theories and more. This is the first time I'm using a simulator, so hopefully this will provide an easier visual to follow along with. Without further ado, let's get into match number 1. Our first match in this video is going up against Kashtira. Obviously, looking at our first 5 cards, we open up Deployment, Fallen of Abaz, Illusion of Chaos, Magician's Rod, and Branded Fusion. We didn't open any going second cards, so our opponent is essentially going to go full combo into the Kashtira line of play. He's going to do whatever he needs to do. He's going to summon Shangri-Ira. He's going to attempt to bring out Arise Heart and begin to start locking our zones. As his turn ends, I'm going to pause the video here as we draw our 6th card, and we're going to draw into Triple Tactics Thrust. Now, what I want to quickly go over is Thrust wasn't in my most recent deck profile, but things kind of changed throughout the duration of testing. Disclaimer, I don't think Thrust is going to be a mainstay in the main deck. So these are our 6 cards, and essentially what we need to do is how can these 6 cards combat what our opponent is playing? What I see is that the Arise Heart has a 1 material on it, which means it doesn't have the Banish. However, it still has a Macrocosmos effect, which does need to be played around. He has 1 Fenrir in hand because I know he searched it, as well as a Birth. I'm not sure why he didn't activate the Birth. Potentially he was scared of Ogre, or he was scared of, some sort of interruptions that won't let him play. So potentially he saved it for follow-up. In addition to this, I don't know what his set card is, so I know 2 of the 3 cards in his hand, or potentially a set. What I have in my hand is a way to break this board, as well as gaining advantage with Albaz, Deployment, Illusion of Chaos, and things like that, as well as Branded Fusion. In this situation, you want to activate Branded Fusion last. That's going to be the last card you're going to activate in this situation. Thrust is immediately live off the Shangri-Ira and the Arise Heart banishes. However, I don't think we're going to need it just yet. So we'll play out this turn. What I'm going to do is I'm going to activate Deployment to summon out Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous. Then what I'm going to do is essentially normal summon Fallen of Abaz, discarding the Magician's Rod to fuse the Fallen of Abaz and the Kashtira Arise Heart to make a Mirror Jade, immediately making the Macrocosmos effect non-valid, which now allows me to go into the Illusion Chaos place with Magician's Souls and Branded Fusion. Here, what he'll do is activate Unicorn, banishing a random card from my extra deck, as well as Shangri-La to lock another zone, and Pressure Planet to potentially pop Mirror Jade. Here, what we'll do is we'll activate Mirror Jade's effect to essentially get the most maximum value off it. In addition, we will chain Cartesia to summon Granguignol using the Mirror Jade. Remember, Mirror Jade is being popped here, so using Cartesia and Mirror Jade as fodder to make Granguignol to progress our game state is very, very strong in this situation. We'll banish the Shangri-Ira, and now we'll activate the copy of Granguignol to pitch our copy of Dark Magician from deck to grave. Then we'll activate Branded Fusion, sending our copy of Albion the Shrouded Dragon, as well as our second copy of Fallen of Albaz to make a copy of Lubellion. Lubellion is going to activate, discarding Illusion of Chaos to make Dragoon, and our copy of Dragoon will pop the Kashtira Unicorn, and we'll enter battle phase swinging with the Granguignol and the Dragoon, resulting in a Game 1 win. That's it for Game 1. Now we'll head over to what I sided in for this game. This is the list that we used in this specific matchup. Obviously, it's a little bit different from our previous lists. However, this is all throughout testing, and I just wanted to press record and essentially talk about what I'm doing at the time. Anyways, this is what our list looks like pre-siding, right? We just played our Game 1, and we're going into Game 2 against Kashtira. What we need to account for is A, the significant amount of summoning, B, the triggers, and the grind game in terms of Kashtira Birth. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we're siding in our 3 copies of Kurikara as this entire deck triggers, right? The Shangri-La has trigger effects, the The Arise Heart has a lot of trigger effects. The Unicorns, the Fenrirs, all those cards have trigger effects, which makes Kurikara a devastating card into the Kashtira matchup. In addition, for Kashtira to do anything remotely threatening, they need to play into Nibiru, so we're going to side in the 3 copies of Nibiru, as well as the 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. So pretty much these are going to be our 9 cards that are going into the Kashtira matchup. What we're siding out is we're going to side out 3 copies of Duality, as they're not necessarily crazy impact in going second, right? Duality, the point of Duality is to really accentuate and make our board overkill. With our graveyard also being dead into a Rise Heart, Duality is very lackluster in this situation, as is El Shaddai Winda. So essentially going second, Winda is very weak. So we're cutting the Schism and the 3 copies of Secret Village, because we're not going to be playing into we're not playing first, so we're not attempting to flood out our opponent. In addition, we'll probably be siding out our Albion in this situation and our copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. Feather Duster is actually really cool in this situation. However, there's just the rest of our cards in our list are significantly higher impact. So essentially, we need these cards a lot more than we're going to need Feather Duster. Even though Feather Duster is a crazy card, I think Cyclone is just a little bit stronger, and that's why we're going to substitute the 2, right? So that's it. We're going to side out these 9 cards for these 9. So 3 Dualities, the 1 Schism, the 3 Villages, the 1 Albion, and the 1 Feather Duster for these 9 going second cards, which are really going to attempt to break our opponent's board. So now that we went into what we sided in and out, let's get on to game 2 of this match. Into game 2, our opponent's obviously going to opt to go first in this situation with Kashtira. However, with our opening hand being of Triple Tactics Talents, Thrusts, Nibiru, which is going to be crazy, and Fallen of Albaz, as well as Illusion of Chaos, we have access to do everything we need to not only break the Kashtira board, as well as beating the opponent in this situation, right? Just having Nibiru in our hand, I don't see a situation where our opponent can extend their board to a state where it's unplayable for us without walking into Nibiru. So Nibiru is going to be a crazy card in this situation, and let's see how this plays out. Our opponent's going to normal summon Fenrir, search his Rise Heart, and he's going to start doing the standard Kashtira play, right? Going into Theoses with Unicorn, grabbing Birth, and all these things. So at this point, we're just letting him summon until he commits to Shangri-La and Kashtira Rise Heart, right? So that's when he commits to those 2 cards, especially those 2 cards, we're going to opt to do the Nibiru. With the 3 material Arise Heart, he's gonna proceed past main phase 1, and because he had the 3 material Arise Heart, we are going to activate Nibiru, essentially clearing out his entire board. However, remember, he did search the Birth, which will give him follow-up. However, the Nibiru was absolutely mandatory to put in that situation. And if he was able to end his turn without us resolving Nibiru, we would have been in significant trouble. So with the Nibiru token live, and he's going to end up doing his Kashtira stuff with Kashtira Birth, essentially activating his follow-up for the next turn. To be fair, our opponent played around Nibiru exceptionally well in this situation, because he's still able to make Fenrir, and he's going to Mecha Phantom Beast Draco Sack. He's going to activate the tokens, clear a Nibiru token, and he's going to pass turn here. So he has 2 sets with no cards in hand and Kashtira Birth. We drew into Fusion Deployment, which is a fantastic card. Now, we know this, he doesn't have any triggers, so essentially our thrusts and our talents isn't really live right now unless he goes into his Birth line of play. However, we have Fallen of Albaz, as well as Illusion of Chaos and Deployment, which are going to really push this game state forward in our favor. We're going to start by activating our Illusion of Chaos, grabbing our Magician's Souls, and activating our Deployment to summon out Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous. With Magician's Souls, we're going to summon our copy of Dark Magician and normal summon Fallen of Albaz. Here, what our opponent will do is he will activate Imperm, targeting our Fallen of Albaz, which means immediately we're going to chain Cartesia, because what happens now is, assuming this is a second Imperm, with his first Imperm being activated, our Cartesia will resolve relatively safely. In addition to this, what we have is the proper materials with Dark Magician and Fallen of Abaz to make our copy of Dragoon. Now what will happen here is simply Dragoon will clear the Nibiru token, which is the biggest body on board. Our Blazing Cartesia will swing into the token, making the Mecha Phantom Beast able to be destroyed by battle in this situation, and will proceed to end phase. On our opponent's turn, he'll draw a card, and then he'll essentially activate Book of Moon. I'm assuming he attempted to flip Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. However, Dragoon cannot be targeted by Book of Moon, so he's forced to activate and Book of Moon targeting Blazing Cartesia the Virtuous, meaning our Dragoon is immediately live. And all we're doing in this situation is saving our Dragoon negate for Kashtira Birth. The second he activates Kashtira Birth, which is the biggest threat in Kashtira versus Dark Magician, we are going to negate that with Dragoon. We don't care if he has a triple tactics talents in hand, if he wants to take our Dragoon. We don't care about that stuff. Or Kurikara, we don't care. As long as Kashtira Birth is off the field and no longer a threat, we are free to play and we're free to win the grind game. So we immediately negate the Kashtira Birth and he immediately scoops. That's it for the game. I'm assuming he has no card. The card in hand is not a card he could really play with. We do have Blazing Cartesia set, and with our 6th card, we essentially have more than enough for game. So that's it for match 1 against Kashtira. And essentially, if there's any takeaway, what we want to do is utilize Nibiru or Kurikara and Triple Tactics Talents, Thrusts, any of those trigger cards to take control of the game state. And as long as we deal with Kashtira Birth, we win the game. Note that Kashtira has an impossible time outing Dragoon unless they go into Kashtira Scareclaw, which can negate Dragoon's effect when a Kashtira monster declares an attack, or Zeus. If they don't have access to either of those 2 cards, Kashtira Birth is the card to hit, right? If you have if your deck has other means of dealing with Kashtira Birth, then by all means you could save your Dragoon negate for that Scareclaw or the Zeus, because those are the 2 problematic monsters in this situation. Outside of that, Dragoon really does solo the Kashtira matchup, and I think the sooner that DM players realize this, the sooner we will have a better time and easier time dealing with Kashtira. So that's it for match 1, and let's get on to match 2. Our next match is against Rika Savavalon. Rika is one of those decks that I think is going to be a menace in the upcoming format, just because its ability to go first and set up absolutely incredible boards, as well as dealing with insanely problematic monsters with cards like Con that just tribute for cost, which is absurd. Anyways, in this hand we have Droll Lockbird, Secret Village of the Spellcasters, Illusion of Chaos, Fusion Deployment, and Blazing Cartesia. Here, what we're going to essentially do is attempt to activate Illusion of Chaos, walking right into Droll, and this is exactly why I always opt to play 3 copies of Illusion of Chaos over prep, because if we just prepped there and got Illusion of Chaos, our turn just ends, right? We have no access to Rod or anything like that, so just having 3 copies of Illusion of Chaos, allowing us to search Rod. Sure, we walked into a Droll, but we have a body to work with. Here we'll normal summon Rod, obviously not activating its effect, activating Fusion Deployment, summoning Cartesia, which will then bait the Imperm. This was actually a pretty decent play, just because Cartesia baiting the Imperm essentially burns a card out of their hand that we no longer have to deal with. The only thing we were going to do with this anyways was send Albion to our graveyard, which essentially generated us follow-up. However, we're able to do that next turn anyways. Here we'll activate Secret Village of the Spellcasters and proceed to end our turn. Obviously here we do not know what our opponent's playing. So a blind first Secret Village is actually incredibly strong, assuming that we get a matchup that favors us in this situation. Here, our opponent will normal summon the Sunseed, and then we'll activate Cartesia's effect to summon out Grand Guignol. Grand Guignol will send Albion, which then he'll respond by linking into Savavalon Tree, or whatever the card's called, searching, sowing, and this is where the Droll and Lockbird in our hand essentially ends his turn. We're going to activate Droll, and he's not going to be able to do anything after that. He's going to set a card, and the reason why Droll in this deck is so good is because essentially it doesn't hurt the deck as much as just like it wouldn't hurt branded, right? Because Albion is still able to trigger in the end phase, setting branded fusion from deck. In addition, we add our copy of Cartesia, and and our opponent's passes turn where we top deck the Dark Magician. Here, we'll just normal summon Cartesia, activate branded fusion, and our opponent knows that he can't play through it. He's not gonna be able to win this turn. We're gonna win this turn by if branded fusion here resolves, we get Dragoon, and our board is just so crazy with Secret Village. Our opponent is forced to scoop, giving us the win in game 1. And that's why Secret Village is so incredibly strong, as well as Droll and Lockbird in the main deck. If you notice, this list is much more similar to our most recent deck profile, and nonetheless, we are siding in for Rika going second. Now, what we need to understand is Rika going second is going to be a very difficult matchup, essentially because Rika is going to set up a ridiculous board. So we need to either side in cards that activate on triggers, like Kurikara, for example, or Triple Tactics Thrust, right, which we are going to be using to bait negates, as well as breaking the board before it even forms. Cards like Nibiru need to stay in the main here, as well as Droll and Lockbird. So what we need to think about is what are going to be our impact cards going second. We're going to sign the 3 copies of Kurikaras, the 3 copies of Triple Tactics Thrusts, the 1 Feather Duster, the 1 Talents, and the 1 Dark Ruler No More, right? These 9 cards are going to be sided in going second here. The reason why I'm not siding in Cosmic Cyclone, although Con is a crazy card, I think Thrust, just being able to search Feather Duster, Talents, and Dark Ruler No More is a little bit more effective, and if needed, Duster just wipes that board completely. So there's not really a need for Cosmic Cyclone. I think Cosmic Cyclone is better for this matchup if you're going first. What we're going to be signing out is our 3 copies of Secret Village of the Spellcasters, along with 1 Deployment and 1 Duality, as well as the 1 Shadal Schism. In addition to this, we are going to be signing out the 1 copy of Dark Magician Girl and the 1 copy of Super Poly, essentially leaving our list with a bunch of 2-ofs. In addition to this, we need to make a decision here. Do we side out the 1 copy of Soul Servant or the 1 copy of Magician's Rod? Because of the way our deck works with Cartesia, we need as many bodies on the available to fuse with. So we are going to side out the 1 copy of Soul Servant because we don't have the draw 2 with Dark Magician Girl, right? So we're going to keep the 1 copy of Soul Servant along with the 1 Secrets and the 2 Rods, the 1 Timaeus, the 3 Magician Souls, the 3 Illusion of Chaos, and the 1 Dark Magician as our Dark Magician package. And it's going to be carried by these 7 cards here, the 2 Fallen of Abaz, the Cartesias, and the Branded Fusions, along with the incredible amount of board breakers. Look at this. We're playing almost 15 board breakers and cards that interrupt your opponent. And it's going to be incredibly key to stop our opponent from even generating a board. And if they do generate a board, it's going to help break it. So this is the deck we're going to take into game 2 of our matchup against Rika. And we will jump into that right now. This is game 2 of the Rika match. And essentially, we open up no interruptions. Our Rika opponent is going to go full combo, and it's just going to show you how unbelievably strong this Rika board actually is. Obviously, this matchup becomes incredibly easy if we saw the copies of Nibiru or the copies of Droll that we sided it in, or sorry, that we mained. However, we weren't able to see them, and sometimes it is what it is. We are going to speed up this Rika combo just essentially to get to a point where I could break down what we have to work with versus what our opponent has on the board. And the point of this is essentially going to show you how good this deck is actually breaking boards. The one thing that is incredibly strong is that our last action can be our most powerful and our most impactful. Like I said, our opponent can burn through 4 cards in our hand, and if our last card is the game changer, we can win a game outright like that. And this is the end board that our Rika player ended on. He ended on Con, Tree Drop, Therion King, Regulus, Sacred Beast Tree, Jasmine, a card set, and we end up top decking our copy of Duality with our Talents, Souls, Timaeus, Branded Fusion, and Blazing Cartesia. Here, we'll essentially start burning our opponent's negates one by one, starting by activating Magician Souls, which will then be negated. We will normal summon our Cartesia. Our Cartesia will activate, getting bounced back to our hand. However, this is where our opponent misplaced, because even though our Cartesia is bounced back to our hand, our Cartesia effect still attempts to resolve, fusing our copy of Cartesia and our Timaeus to make Grand Guignol, which is incredibly strong here. Grand Guignol will activate, which will then be sent to the graveyard by the trigger effect in the graveyard. I'm not sure what triggered it, but our Grand will be sent to the graveyard here. And then we have our talents, which is live. Our talents, our point of the talents here is to attempt to bait the Therion so that Branded Fusion is live and safe to use unless he has Ash. If this guy has Ash Blossom, it is what it is. He just opened the nuts and there's nothing we could do about it. But we have to play our cards strategically. So we attempt to take his Regulus, and he ends up negating the Triple Tactics talents, which then leaves us free to resolve our copy of Branded Fusion. And this is exactly what I mean. We burned through 5 cards in our hand. 4 cards in our hand, and our last card that we activated was Branded Fusion. You know how unbelievably strong that is? For DM, like that's typically a situation that doesn't exist for traditional Dark Magician styles of play. Anyways, we activate our copy of Branded Fusion, activating our Albion, and then we'll chain our copy of Duality, making our Albion the Sanctifier Dragon. Albion will now resolve Engrave to summon our copy of Dragoon, and with no negates, his Teardrop will attempt to activate. However, his card here needs to target, right? However, Dragoon and Sanctifier both can't be targeted, so that's a misplay on my opponent's end here. We will activate Duality to shuffle a few cards back to our deck, essentially to draw 1 for discard fodder, assuming that, if our opponent has some sort of blowout card. Dragoon will pop his Teardrop, and then we go into battle phase, essentially beginning to slowly clear our opponent's board. We'll proceed to end phase. Albion will activate, pretty much generating our follow-up for next turn, along with our Cartesia. Our opponent will go and our Sanctifier will activate. This was done a little bit prematurely because it did bait the Therion King Regulus. I didn't expect him to have this much follow-up. However, we're forced to negate with our Dragoon to deal with the Regulus completely. Normal summoning our Fallen of Albaz. He ends up activating Rika Sheath, which tributes our Dragoon for cost because of Con, and which will then take control of our Fallen of Albaz. What people don't know is that Fallen of Albaz can still fuse. If you activate Fallen of Albaz and your opponent takes control of it, our Fallen of Albaz is still able to fuse. So a Fallen of Albaz and our opponent's monster makes Mirror Jade in this situation, which will then, allow our opponent, that will end our opponent's standby phase, which will then proceed him into his main phase. And then he proceeds with his traditional Rika stuff, trying to generate his advantage back. Here we mistime our Mirror Jade banish. I didn't want him to get access to the tree. However, we walked into our talents. Sometimes it is what it is. And we proceed to our end phase, grabbing back our Cartesia, and we top deck the Dark Ruler no more. Now here, I actually end up passing turn only because I don't think that my opponent can kill me. I think I have so much gas, and I think with 5 cards left in the extra deck and 20 in the main, there isn't much my opponent can actually do. So in addition to all this, my opponent will just attempt to summon the one seed along with the sowing, and essentially he tries to go into his another copy of Jasmine. And I end up taking some damage, which is totally okay. But with Cartesia, Branded Fusion, and Dark Ruler no more, there isn't a situation where I lose. In addition, Grand Guignol then banishes itself from grave to summon Lulu. In the end phase, we end up top decking the Fusion deployment. We activate Cartesia, and we activate deployment to reveal Dark Magicians to summon the Dark Magician girl. Our opponent here scoops. He knows that we have Branded Fusion in hand. He knows we have unbelievable follow-up. He doesn't have any resources left. And this is exactly why I think this is the best variant of DM. It's simply because the grind game is so incredibly effective. This video has gone on very long, so we'll end it here. However, if this is the type of content you guys want to see in terms of full match breakdowns against current meta decks, in addition to the content I already provide, please let me know. In addition, it's no surprise that I'm still very new to this. So if there's any way to improve my content, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching and for the endless support on every single one of my videos. It means so much to me. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.